Can Halo Infinite really last 10 years? We've heard the words from a lot of studios, I would say in the last 5-6 years, about things like this. We're going to support it for 10 years or more. It's going to be the hub, your singular source for this franchise for the next decade. And I don't need to tell you, it hasn't worked out that way for a lot of them. Whether it just be the bottom line not making sense, not enough players for it to be financially viable, publishers tend to move on pretty quickly when the money isn't there to support that decade-long adventure. And now it's almost like a warning sign when you hear about the 10-year support, almost as if it's echoing of an unfinished title. Now, unpopular opinion in this video, I do think Halo Infinite could last 10 years, potentially, but requires a few very, very specific things to happen. So please understand me when I say it's possible, but I really don't know how likely. And also, lasting 10 years doesn't mean Halo Infinite will ever reach the popularity of Apex or Warzone, Fortnite, Tarkov, Siege, etc. I do think it could achieve a moderately sized FPS fanbase, but I think the ship has sailed for Infinite's chances to really make it big, top 3 FPS kind of big. It had some of the momentum necessary back in November and December, but now, it would take some serious marketing wizardry, lots of buy-in from the fan base, great support from the developers, to really propel it back up. Now, I would love that to happen, I don't see it likely. But let's talk about why I think Infinite could last those 10 years, and what would need to happen in order for it to be supported that long. So first of all, if 343 or any support studios can't develop in a fluid or agile way with the Slipspace engine, then there's no chance. This is where you've got to start at a bare bones level. Developers have to be able to patch the game quickly, resolve bugs, remove cheaters, add content, and make simple changes. If those changes are so astronomically difficult for teams of really smart engineers to work with, then it doesn't matter how ambitious the studio heads are or how much money is thrown at a project, it won't get off the ground. As an outward observer, this really seems to be the number one thing holding Halo Infinite back from my speculation. We are weeks into Season 2, and the BR jamming bug is still an issue. Now, when you're watching this video, it's probably resolved. They are aware of it, they've got a fix, but they're just waiting to put it into a larger patch. In an FPS game, to have your main utility weapon have a bug where it simply just doesn't fire when the player presses the right input, that, in my opinion, is pretty game-breaking, and indicates to me, since it's not a quick, easy hotfix, that they really are working with an engine here that is cumbersome and difficult and honestly held together very loosely to where it needs a ton of QA before it's going to get pushed out. First of all, if the engine can't be worked with, then no, I don't see Infinite really going the distance. And it also extends a little bit further too, because in 10 years, players are going to expect more campaign expansions, more multiplayer experiences, and you can't build anything bigger and better if just the small stuff is holding you back. The second one is community satisfaction and trust. It's pretty self-explanatory. In order for a game to last long, you need a player base. That player base is your community, people who revisit the game, play it as a hobby, day in and day out. You need to nail the satisfaction of those players, and you also need to have their trust, and that only comes from proven results. I do think we have an amazing community team at 343, and they talk with us in a really professional way, and I do feel like the community feedback is heard. However, the trust and the satisfaction elements, those come down to the results, and ultimately that's what the devs are putting out. The community team communicates our feedback, great, but if it doesn't necessarily lead to the results in the time frame that the players want, you're going to have trouble nailing that community trust about what's coming, and can we really expect this next patch to either better the game or potentially worsen the game. So on this point, I do think that 343, especially with MCC the last few years, has a clear roadmap of what to do here to nail that satisfaction and trust. At this point, it just comes down to deliver results that will honor your community. Do things that will make your player base excited to play your game. And there you go. Then you have a player base who wants to come back every day, and it grows from there. You start small, you honor your community first, their desires, and build from there. Now, the third thing Infinite will need in order to last those 10 years is the ability for the community to hope that the franchise can succeed. Does the community believe that Infinite can succeed? Do they have hope that the franchise is in the right hands in order for it to move forward? Is the leadership's vision for this franchise going down the track that builds interest in players to continue with it over the long haul? I've been making Halo videos since 2011, but I play a lot of different games, and I'm sure you do as well. One of the most important things developers, or at least publishers and studios, are looking at now is our time. All of these mainline FPS titles are free to play. The most valuable resource we as players give them is, of course, time, because time can be monetized in all sorts of different ways. But time really matters, and where you're spending it is a big deal. Like, these publishers are spending a lot of effort to make sure that they're the ones bringing you back, earning that time. It requires hope in the player base, right? That they believe it's going to move in a direction that's getting better and better. If you're an Apex player and you just feel like, hey, it's not going to improve and there's no hope for this title, you're likely going to go look and find another hobby FPS game to go play. So in order for the 10 years to actually happen, you need to have and maintain the ability for your community to have hope that things are really going to work out. And the fourth one, stability from consistent results. This is probably the most important one. If you look at Siege, Siege was not able to really nail community satisfaction and trust and that hope for a few years. And then they really retooled things, and through consistent results, they made a huge turnaround, and it's one of the most popular FPS games because of those consistent results. It delivers stability for the player base. And creator culture, it does impact the popularity of a game. Every player is a potential creator as well. This is something that Halo did really well in Halo 3 with the file share system. Creators matter, whether you stream, make YouTubes, TikToks, even making like thumbnails, maps, replays. It all is a form of content that people who like the franchise can share, and that creates further interest. This is why I think Halo 3 was genius, because so many people who would never be interested in like photography or whatever would take screenshots and put them on their file share, or maybe even they make a custom game or a Forge map and share it with their friends. This is one of those areas that does matter. So when you have consistent results that are driving success over and over again, you as a player, you're satisfied. Creators are more apt to want to create content for it, which, again, creates that snowball of interest. I hope we see a file share system similar to what we had in Halo 3. We'd love to know if you actually played Halo 3. Shout out in the comments, especially if you made it this far into the video, and how you used Halo 3's file share. Did you ever make a screenshot and share it with other people? Because that was its own creator community. It turned all the players into creators in a really easy way within the game. And the fifth, and probably the most important thing for this 10-year journey, you are your community. If you would rather trade what you currently have for what you don't have, it's going to be a very rough spot. This one does give me a lot of hope for Halo Infinite. The base gameplay, I know that term gets thrown around all the time, but the base gameplay really is good. And I think that it does satisfy legacy players and new players. Not 100%, let's be honest. A lot of people miss the skill ceiling stuff from Halo 5. A lot of Halo 5 players are saying this is a boring game. I miss the ability of my Magnum. And then a lot of classic players, it doesn't necessarily land all of the points either. But I do believe it has merged the two in a way that is approachable for new players, but enjoyable for legacy Halo players like myself. Could be wrong, but I think that's the overall consensus. So it does seem like as long as they're willing to really focus on the community they currently have, focus on honoring and designing things around, not disrupting that too terribly much, also not being too scared to take some risks here and there, that is important for maintaining 10 years of Halo. I'm more so just saying, don't give up what you have just for the desire of what you don't have. As I mentioned, it's a lot of very specific things, and I really don't know if that 10-year journey is going to conclude early or if we're going to ride the train all the way there. What I do know is I think it's got the potential to satisfy players and nail those consistent results. And MCC is a good, element to look at the last 2 years. We've covered it on the channel since 2014. And in the last 2 years, it has become a really cool experience. So I do have some hope for sure that it can happen. It's just going to take some time. Now, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments down below. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next one.